Ever wondered how a swampy patch of land became one of the most magnificent squares in the world? Let's travel back in time to Venice and uncover the incredible story of Piazza San Marco, or as we know it, St. Mark's Square. This isn't just a pretty postcard spot. It's the heart of Venice, a stage where centuries of history, power, and art have played out. Napoleon famously called it the drawing room of Europe, and for good reason. From its humble beginnings to the grand spectacle we see today, every stone here has a story. So grab your virtual gelato and let's dive into the fascinating tale of how this iconic square came to be. Our story begins over 1,000 years ago, in the 9th century. Venice was just a fledgling city, a collection of islands in a marshy lagoon. The area that would become St. Mark's Square was nothing more than a small, grassy field with a canal running through it, called the Rio But. On one side stood a modest chapel dedicated to St. Theodore, the city's first patron saint. On the other, the original Doge's Palace, which looked more like a fortified castle with defensive towers and a moat. It was practical, but far from the grandeur we associate with Venice today. This was a city built on water and ambition, and its most important public space was still a work in progress. Then, in the year 828, something happened that changed everything. Two Venetian merchants, in a daring act of religious theft, smuggled the relics of St. Mark the Evangelist out of Alexandria, Egypt. They supposedly hid the precious remains in a barrel of pork to get past Muslim guards. When they arrived back in Venice, the city rejoiced. St. Mark, with his symbol of the winged lion, became the new patron saint, a far more powerful and prestigious symbol for the rising maritime republic. To house these sacred relics, construction began on the first St. Mark's Basilica, right next to the Doge's Palace. This single act cemented the square's destiny as the religious and political center of Venice. For the next few centuries, the square slowly began to take shape. The original basilica, a wooden structure, burned down in a rebellion in 976 and had to be rebuilt. The city was growing, its wealth and power expanding across the Mediterranean. By the 12th century, Venice was a dominant force, and its main square needed to reflect that status. This is when the first major transformation occurred. Around 1177, under the rule of Doge Sebastiano Ziani, a visionary plan was put into action. The canal, the Rio Batario, was filled in. This bold move doubled the size of the square, uniting the area in front of the basilica with the space in front of the palace. It was a massive undertaking that literally laid the groundwork for the piazza we see today. With this new, larger space, the square was paved with herringbone-patterned bricks, and two massive granite columns were erected at the water's edge, creating a ceremonial entrance to the city from the sea. These columns, brought from the east, were a trophy of Venice's power. One was topped with the winged lion of St. Mark, the other with a statue of St. Theodore, a nod to the city's original patron. This grand entrance, known as the Piazzetta, or Little Square, was a powerful statement to all arriving ships. You are entering a city of immense wealth and influence. The square was no longer just a local space. It was becoming an international stage. The Middle Ages and the Renaissance were the golden age for St. Mark's Square. The Venetian Republic was at the peak of its power, and the square was its beating heart. The Doge's Palace was rebuilt and expanded, losing its fortress-like appearance and becoming the Gothic masterpiece we admire today. The basilica was also undergoing a magnificent transformation. Over centuries, it was adorned with mosaics, marble, and treasures plundered from crusades, most famously from the sack of Constantinople in 1204. The 4 bronze horses that once graced the Hippodrome of Constantinople were placed triumphantly on the basilica's facade, a symbol of Venice's victory and imperial ambition. The church became known as the Chiesa d'Oro, the Church of Gold, a dazzling testament to the Republic's faith and fortune. Surrounding the square, new buildings rose, defining its elegant perimeter. The Procurity, the long arcaded buildings that line the north and south sides, were constructed. These were the offices and residences of the procurators of St. Mark. the highest-ranking officials in the city after the Doge. The Procurati Vecchi, the old offices on the north side, were rebuilt in the early 16th century after a fire, giving them their classic Renaissance style. A century later, construction began on the Procurati Nuove on the south side, designed in a more classical style. These buildings, with their ground floor arcades, created a sheltered walkway and space for shops and cafes, making the square a center of social and commercial life. One of the most iconic structures, the Campanile, or bell tower, also has a dramatic history. The original tower, which served as a watchtower and lighthouse, was first built in the 9th century. Over the centuries, it was damaged by fire and lightning and repeatedly rebuilt, each time growing taller and more ornate. It reached its final form in the 16th century, a soaring brick tower nearly 100 meters tall. But then, disaster struck. On the morning of July 14, 1902, with little warning, the entire tower collapsed into a pile of dust. Miraculously, no one was killed, except for a cat. The Venetians were heartbroken, but their response was immediate. The city council decided to rebuild it Camara Dovera, as it was, where it was. 10 years later, a new, identical Campanile was inaugurated, a testament to the city's resilience and love for its most famous landmark. As the centuries passed, the square continued to evolve. In the 15th century, the Torre dell'Orologio, the clock tower, was added. This incredible astronomical clock, with its blue and gold face, displayed the time, the phase of the moon, and the zodiac. At the top, two bronze figures, known as the Moors, because of their dark patina, strike the bell on the hour. They've been doing it for over 500 years. Then, under Napoleon's rule in the early 19th century, the final piece of the puzzle was added. He demolished a church at the west end of the square to build what's known as the Napoleonic Wing, completing the grand enclosure and creating the drawing room of Europe he envisioned. Today, St. Mark's Square is more than just an architectural marvel. It's a living museum. It's the place where Venetians and visitors alike have gathered for centuries. It's hosted state ceremonies, public announcements, religious processions, and the famous Venetian Carnival. The historic cafes under the arcades, like Caffè Florian, which opened in 1720, have served coffee to everyone from Casanova to Charles Dickens. It's a place where you can feel the weight of history under your feet, from the filled-in canal to the herringbone bricks. You can stand in the center and trace the story of Venice, from a fledgling republic to a mighty empire, and finally to the beloved city it is today. From a muddy field to a magnificent piazza, the story of St. Mark's Square is the story of Venice itself, a tale of ambition, faith, art, and an enduring spirit. It's a reminder that the world's most beautiful places are often built layer by layer over centuries of human endeavor. So next time you see a picture of those winged lions and golden mosaics, you'll know the incredible journey that brought them there. Thanks for joining me on this trip through time. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more stories from around the world. See you next time.